they're lying to you about what a data analyst does, and until you learn what I'm about to talk about today, you will struggle as a data analyst. So if you want to break into data analytics, make sure you watch this video all the way to the end before you land your first role. Otherwise, you will have a hard time. Most of the time when you're trying to become a data analyst, this is what you're taught. Learn Excel, SQL, Python, R, some visualization tools like Power BI or Tableau, start building some projects, and then start applying for jobs. But from the little experience I've gained as a data analyst, I've realized that learning all these tools only prepares you for a small fraction of what a data analyst does, maybe about 15 to 20% of what a data analyst actually does. And I've touched on some of these things like the importance of having soft skills as a data analyst. But today, what I actually want to focus on is how projects are actually done in the real world as a data analyst in comparison to how we are taught. So currently I'm involved in quite a big project which is slowly coming to an end now, where I'm rebuilding all our existing dashboards for different departments. I think collectively I'm building about 67 different dashboards. So it's been quite a rough couple of months for me. But just like most people, when they announced the project to me, my first thought process was, okay, show me the data and let's start building these dashboards. That's kind of how we are wired. You just need the data, and then you start building, and job done. But no, sir, I was completely wrong. There's so much involved before you even start the project, or the building phase. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to try and go through the full process of actually building a project in the real world in comparison to how we are taught when trying to become a data analyst, so that you'll be prepared as well when you ultimately land your first role as a data analyst. So before you start any data analytics projects, it's very important that you know what problem you're trying to solve or what question you're trying to answer. It's very, very important that you get this right, because a lot of sometimes investment and time goes into projects, and if you don't know these things from the onset, you might end up solving the wrong problem or doing something completely different, and that can cost the organization a lot of money. Okay, so um, this part of the process is called scoping, where you know, yeah, you basically sit down, discuss, the issues that you're facing, what problem you're trying to solve, what the goal of the project is going to be, and then you sort of, with the stakeholders, you sort of discuss a delivery plan. Um, you discuss a delivery plan, a timeline to, deliver all of these things by. Make sure all the stakeholders are on the same page and everyone, has the same expectations basically from the project. So this is called scoping. So for the project that I had to do, I missed this part of the process because I wasn't recruited then. So they sort of done this before I joined. So I missed this part of the process. But essentially, this part of the process is very, very important. You can't, skip this part, because if you get the projects wrong, it can cost the company a lot of money and waste a lot of resources. So after being clear on what the objectives and what the expectation of the project is going to be, now it was time for us in our project anyway to define who the stakeholders are. So who's going to be impacted by our project, who's going to have a lot of interest in the project that we're working on. So when you're working on projects, of course, there's going to be some people or some people that would have, spent a lot of money on the project, and it's very important to them that the project is successful. And also there are some people that are also going to be using whatever product or wherever you're building, so they will also have a lot of interest in the project. So we had to compile a list of all these stakeholders. And with in my project, again, this was done prior to when I joined, but they had a list of over 150 people, so quite a lot of people were um, interested in the project. And we kept on adding to that as well. And then once we had a list of all those stakeholders, then we had to rate them. So we added an additional two columns. So we got the stakeholders and what departments they worked in, and then we had to rate them, how much influence they had on the project out of 5, and then how much interest they had uh, in the project out of 5 as well. So if they got, say, 5 and a 5, that's what, 10. So which is basically the highest it can be. So someone like that means they have a lot of interest and influence on the project, and you have to manage that person very carefully and you have to make sure those people are happy. And then someone got like one and the one, it means their name is on the list, but they don't really care too much about the outcome of the project, and they're not really invested in it. So you don't have to worry too much about those people. But the ones at the top is the ones that you had to focus on. So once we got all the ratings, I had to do the next thing I had to do is do a stakeholder mapping. Okay, so again, this was something that was completely new to me. So that's one of the first things I did as part of the project when I joined. And when they told me I had to do it, I just said, of course. I said yeah, but I had no idea what that was. So I had to check on Google, ChatGPT, YouTube, wherever, and watch as many videos as I could. And there's not a lot of videos about stakeholder mapping actually. I think I found maybe one or two um, helpful ones. And now I have a bit of experience. I might in the future at a later date do a video on how to do a stakeholder map in Power BI is what I had to do in. So yeah, that was a bit of a challenge, but just as everything else, kept on with a lot of research and a lot of dedication, I got there in the end. But essentially, what I had to do then is take all that data and plot all the names of the stakeholders on a chart in Power BI. So you have these axes, and then yeah, the higher they are on the chart, the more impact and influence they had in the project, and then the lower they are, um, the less interest they had. So basically just visualizing everything from the data that we collected. After that, we had to do what's called data mapping. Again, this was something that was new to me and something that caused me immense stress as well. So I'm thinking I've done stakeholder mapping, now data mapping. And again, I checked, did a lot of research, but it was very difficult because I was finding it's very broad. Like data mapping can be done in so many different ways depending on what you're working on and what is being asked of you. So I was quite unsure what they wanted me to do. So it took me a long time because I was just doing random stuff. But basically, what I ended up doing was I did like a high level overview of. I had to basically find out obviously where the date we're gonna get the data from for this project. Okay, so I had to map all of that out. So I had to um, yeah, map out how the data comes in. So basically, when people, in my case, when people complain, the complaints team record the information. So that's how the information comes in, and then the information then is saved on the system. Then it gets converted into Excel, and then that's then extracted. And so I had to map out all of that. So I did a high level overview of that. Then I had to go into detail and really map out every part of the process for of how the data comes in. And then because the project was rebuilding the existing dashboards that we had in Power BI, I had to look at the current setup that we have, and seeing if there's anything from there that we can still use. Is there any measures or any calculated columns that will still work fine in the new report, rather than having to create a new one and waste a lot of time. So I have to look at all of that and see. I have to go through all the measures, all the columns that have been used in Power BI. Listen, it was so long, yeah, very, very mundane, uh, very laborious exercise, but it just had to be done. So yeah, I done all of that, and thank God my manager was happy with that, so I could move on to the next thing. So after doing the data mapping, then I had to also write down like what changes I was going to make to the existing dashboard. So at this point here, I'm basically selling this new dashboard, this amazing dashboard that I was going to build. So I talked about things like using more meaningful colors that help tell a better story, having filter panels, so that we can save space and be able to um, just reduce the pages in the dashboard, because one of the issues in the existing dashboard was that it had too many pages. So we wanted to sort of compress it and then simplify it so that um, people were not so confused. I talked about adding comments to the measures and calculated columns formulas, so that if someone was to take over from me, they will understand why I use certain measures and you know calculated columns so that they can just pick it up from there. So I was basically selling this project that I was going to build. So I done that. So after doing all of that, I sort of sat down with my manager, and then we came up with a delivery plan, an agreed delivery plan where I'll be able to deliver all these things by. And bearing in mind, while all this is going on, I'm not just sitting there just doing this. I'm also doing a lot of BAU tasks, business as usual tasks. There's ad hoc requests that I still I'm still doing my regular day-to-day stuff. So I'm not just sitting there just doing this these things that I've mentioned in the projects. I'm still working on other things. So yeah, so agreed a plan with my manager how when I'm a date for each dashboard that I was going to build. It was very tight, the deadline, so I tried to negotiate um, a bit more time, and I managed to get a bit of an extension, but not as much as I wanted. It was still quite tight, but that's the thing, if you just say yes to everything, you might find yourself in quite a difficult situation. So I always try to, I look at what I'm already working on, because there was a lot of tasks that I was currently working on at the time. We were, reporting on our quarterly reports, monthly reports that I do, um, meetings that I had, factoring like annual leave days that I had, which is gonna cut into the time for. So you have to look at all of these things and see if it's possible, because your bosses are not gonna care once you agree a date. They don't want any excuses. It doesn't look good on you to come up with excuses. So try and at the delivery plan stage, you wanna yeah, negotiate the time and make sure everyone is happy, and you agreed on a realistic deadline, which is not gonna force you to work crazy hours in the night, and staying longer at work. Although I did do a lot of that, because um I'm a bit slow, let's be honest, because I'm still learning. But you want to agree on a realistic delivery plan. So after all of that, the next phase is what I was waiting for, which was building the actual dashboard. So yeah, this is probably what I was looking forward to the most, even though it was very stressful. But I just wanted to get into building all this, data mapping and all this other stuff. It wasn't my favorite part of the process, but at this is what I really want. This is where I learn a lot. This is where you actually get to create something tangible that you can say, oh, you know what, I built this. Something that you can be really proud of. So, and this was very important as well, because this is I've done a lot of work while I joined the organization, but this is something that I can use to basically make a name for myself, that people know that, oh, Alex built this project, and that will really put my name up there. So it was very, very important to me, and I was really looking forward to that. So yeah, I was just building the dashboards. Some of the challenges I faced a lot is creating these measures and calculated columns. There's to achieve. Obviously, I'm trying to improve the dashboard that they had previously. So in order to do that, there was a lot of functions and measures and calculated columns that I had to use, which obviously I didn't know off the top of my head. So that involved like a lot of research on Google, Chat GPT, watching YouTube videos, like anything possible, you know, to just get it over the line. And at some point, because the deadline, felt so tight as well, it was difficult, because, when you're doing this, the goal is also to learn from it. But because I had to build it so fast, I wasn't really getting to learn the things that I was creating as much. It was just more about just getting it done and then sending it out there, um, which is a shame, because I really wanted to sort of take my time and actually learn from, what I'm doing. Of course, I still learn a lot, but not in the way that, I wanted to. But, this is probably my favorite part of the overall process, just building these dashboards. Also, while building all the dashboards, I had to make a note of all the changes I was making to the existing dashboards, all the improvements that I was making. I made sure I noted all of that down so I can show to the bosses, you know, like what improvements I've made, because they're not really tech savvy people, and they don't really know what goes on under the hood in Power BI. They don't know about measures and calculated columns and models and tables and all of that stuff. So I had to really kind of spell it out for them, what changes I was making, so that they can really see the improvements that I'm making in front of them. So one of the goals of the project was to build dashboards that were consistent across all the different departments. Since it's all complaints, but different departments, we wanted to keep it consistent. Have the same color scheme, have the same amount of pages. Just very similar. Okay, but so before I built all the dashboards for all the departments, I built one of it first, and then I showed it to the bosses to get their feedback. So yeah, we went through a few back and forths, got their feedback, adjusted it, showed it to them again, make sure they were all happy, and then once they were kind of happy with the products, the prototype that I built, then I sort of copied that across all the other departments. So once I had the first one, the rest of it was quite easy because I was just literally copying and pasting everything over. So, but I had to just build one first and then started to. Oh, I missed a very important step. Of course, before I actually started building the dashboard, I had to do a mock-up of what I was going to build as well. So I did a mock-up of the dashboard. Even with that one, I didn't know where I was going to get the data from first, so I just downloaded some random data and then I used it to build it. Show them kind of what I was going to build, and then I got into the actual building of the dashboard. Okay, so yeah, almost missed that one, but I'll just slot it in there now. So after building the first one, like I said, I had lots of meetings with the stakeholders, make sure they were happy, and then I sort of copied it across all the rest of the departments. Once I had the first one, the rest of them was pretty much easy. Also, another very important thing that I did to make sure the dashboard was working as it should, and doing what it needs to do, because there's one thing building the dashboard, you'll be playing with it at home, it does everything that you need to do, but then as soon as someone else starts using it, it starts going all funny and then it starts breaking. So what I did was, I sent it to a few people that were, I know they were not tech savvy, because the whole idea is to make sure like it's easily understandable, has a good user interface, and no matter like how much tech knowledge you have, you'll be able to understand and use it. So I sent it to a few of the people in the complaints team who were not particularly tech savvy, to sort of test it out, and they really liked it compared to what they had before. They felt like they could really understand things a lot better, and they really liked it, the color scheme. They really enjoyed the vibrant colors that I put in, and I received some good feedback, and there were a few things also that did not work quite as well. So once I got that feedback, then I worked on fixing it as well. But yeah, so I got a few people to test it out before we prepared for a big rollout of the dashboards. So next, after building all the dashboards, it was time to get ready to roll it out. And before we rolled it out, we got someone that had more experience in change management in our team to help us with that. So this person basically handled the rolling out of all the dashboards. So what he did was, he sort of contacted, all the departments um, that we build the dashboards for, and sort of sold them the dashboards and showed them what we've done, how it's going to improve their way of working and everything, and had basically got a list of everyone that we need to give access and permissions to. The next part of the process is we organize, show, and share meetings via Teams with every department to sort of demonstrate the dashboards that we built. And prior to the meeting, we make sure we send them the dashboard so they can sort of have a feel and sort of play around with it, so that they'll have questions, uh, or be able to understand what is going on before they come to the meeting, so that they're not lost or anything like that. So yeah, we send them the link prior to the meeting, and they came in prepared. It wasn't easy, there was a lot of questions, but we just answered the questions that I could answer on the spot. The ones that I couldn't answer, we sort of took the questions away and then sort of addressed them later. And now that was the last action that we've done um, in the project, and we sort of taken down all the questions. And what we're going to do is we're going to compile like a FAQ, like frequently asked questions type of thing, to address any questions that they may have in the future, so that it will be readily available, to save time from them having to maybe chase me up to ask what this is and what that is. So we took down all the questions, and we're going to sort of yeah, make it into a nice format and try to address all of them. So after those meetings, took the feedback on board and, made any slight tweaks that, I had to make. It wasn't any major changes that I had to make, and then make sure I sent out all the reports to everyone that needs to have access to the report, make sure they have the right permissions and, access. And then after that, we sort of discontinued the previous versions, and then, make sure everyone is now using the new one. So right now we're still in the testing phase, just seeing how everyone gets along with the new report. Of course, we've discontinued the previous one as well, so that everyone will use this one, and then we're going to monitor it for a couple of weeks to see how everyone gets on. Hopefully, it doesn't break or anything, and then we look at it again in a couple of months to see how it is, and then if all things being well, that will be it, and then that will be the end of that project. And of course, while this is all going on, you'll still be in the background. There's still things that I need to manage and maintain on an ongoing basis. So that's the overall process of a data analytics projects, from beginning to end. From my experience anyway, I know a different company might be different, and a different project might also be different. But from my experience, this is what I've learned in the process. It's not just about just getting data and then just building some fancy dashboards like how we learn, you know, when we're trying to break in. And another thing is, keeping it simple as well when you're building the dashboards. When I did the prototypes, I made all these fancy visuals and stuff, and they just wanted something simple that they can understand and be able to use, and all the shadows that I put in at the beginning, they made me sort of get rid of all of that and just build something simple. So just bear that in mind. All that fancy stuff, in the real world, that's not really what they're looking for. They just want something that can be easily understand, easy to use, that people that are not tech savvy can also understand and be able to use. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and found some value in it. If you did enjoy this video, please do want to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this one. Listen, I've been Alex. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.